Hello, my name is Eddie, and welcome back to part 3, yes, that's right, part 3 of my Redesigning Monster High characters series. The first video where I redesigned the first 4 characters came out almost a year ago, and I have to say, I have come a long way from where I was back then with my relationship to Monster High. I was rewatching that first video, mostly so I could remember what I said about the characters, and during the intro I showed you guys a picture of my collection thus far, and suffice it to say, I am a full-blown G3 fan. I am in the trenches defending it like it's my wife and kids. I know it's been months since my last Monster High upload, but I've been working on a lot of cool projects in between, so I want to say thank you so much for the support on my last couple of videos, mainly the Homestuck OC redesign. I did not expect that to get as much attention as it did, so if you haven't watched that video, go check that out. I lose my mind in that one, and it has some of my favorite art I've done in the past year, so yeah, feel free to enjoy that. Speaking of previous videos, if you haven't watched the last 2 Monster High vids, I have already designed the original main crew, and now we are slowly starting to get into the secondary/side characters of the franchise. These are characters, well, I do see fan art of them, and I know they're popular because I've seen their creep reductions sell out in 6 minutes, that don't often get the proper redesign that, say, Draculaura gets. So needless to say, I'm really excited to show the next 5 characters of my series, so let's just get right into it. Usually for these videos, I only redesign 4 characters at a time, but you won't be shocked to find out I'm breaking my usual rule in favor of designing Praphanany and Meowlity at the same time. Oh boy, where do I begin with these funny little ladies? If you were a Gen 1 Monster High fan back in the day, you know these ghouls were always in the background of the webisodes and movies. They served as henchmen for the antagonist Tuli, and also filled the somehow popular stereotype of identical creepy twins who never speak. When it comes to character and lore, the bar is on the floor. I mean, like, there's even a bit in Scarier Reef where the twins are like, oh man, now that Tuli is gone, we can actually have a conversation, and I am bored to death of that trope. TLDR is, I do not have as much to work with like I did on the last 8 characters, but I think that gives me a lot of room to play with their personality and plotline for my non-existent reboot of the franchise. I knew from the get-go that I wanted to make them slightly more visually distinct from one another. Obviously, because they're twins, I wanted them to look related. I definitely want them to match aesthetically, but at the same time, my goal is to be able to point at them and ask which one is Meowlity, and have my audience be able to tell me. BT dubs, just know the one on the left is Praphanany, and the one on the right is Meowlity. I think the choice to give the werecats a band in Gen 3 is a really cute idea, so I am stealing that. Imagine the Hex Girls from Scooby-Doo, but as teenage werecats who sing in their mom's garage every day after school. They are called the Hisfits, and Praphanany is the drummer. She is teenage angst incarnate, angry at the world for being so unfair, and angry that everyone at school mistakes her for a more timid sister, Meowlity. Praphanany is insecure about herself and is constantly looking for ways to prove her value as an individual. But don't get things twisted, she is incredibly protective of her sister and will chew anyone out who even looks sideways at Meowlity. I gave her fun messy pigtails, a devious expression, and even an arm tattoo to make her look more aggressive than her stoic sister. Not to say I think those are aggressive features personally. If I'm being honest, I was trying to go for a design that made kids want to be them, and parents want to ban their dolls from the shelves. Since the werecats are villains, I wanted to make them villains you could really enjoy, hence the punk-inspired fashion and bright colors. Out of the 3 werecats, Praphanany takes the band more seriously than the other 2. She's not into school clubs or sports, and is not helpful on group projects, and therefore I think has a reputation of being a more callous personality. So it's a shock when her peers find out just how hardworking she is when it comes to the Hisfits. I don't picture Praphanany being friends with, say, Holt or Operetta, because she sees them more as competition. Anytime someone with a passion for music crosses her path, she is likely to view them as someone to beat. She really just hangs out with her sister and Tuli, and it has been that way since they were all kittens. I like that she was allergic to birds in Gen 1, so I'm keeping that. She definitely coughs up hairballs, and it's a shame that she's a predator who can't catch prey. Meowlity is the yang to Praphanany's yin, the brain to Praphanany's brawn. Less sociable than the other 2, she prefers to blend into the background more than the spotlight. While it might be Tuli who has the idea for what mean prank they do next, Meowlity is the person who figures out the how. Hey, she may be more shy, but one introvert does not a good person make. She's a devious werecat who will gladly let monsters believe Tuli is the mastermind of the group just so she gets in lesser trouble. And I think she even has Praphanany fooled about how meek she really is. She never has to stand up for herself because there's always someone else there to do it for her. Melody is not only the bassist, but is also the lyricist of the band, and that's her way of channeling her own teen angst into something more productive than terrorizing her high school peers. I'll be honest, sometimes it's hard coming up with patterns that make sense for a certain type of character or specific monster type. Unsurprisingly though, it's always easy coming up with patterns for the werewolves and werecats. I can work with things like cheetah and tiger print, paw prints, though my favorite are the matching collars the sisters wear. I love the big ass bells I gave them, makes them look like both house cats and hardcore. I'm not sure if I want these ghouls to have a redemption arc, if I'm being honest. I always thought it was fun to hate them. I mean, hell, we wouldn't have Why Do Ghouls Fall in Love without their shenanigans, and that is an iconic piece of Monster High lore. I just love them as villains straight up. Maybe there's not a full character arc where the werecats become bad to good per se, but more of an arc where 3 scared kids begin to realize life doesn't end at high school, and the future looks bright towards the end. But also I realize that message might not hit as hard as I hope it would if the werecats don't get some amount of redemption. I have this constant back and forth with myself where maybe the series can go on to do a college arc where they discover what real life is like and become better people. But I also have a lot of characters I want to give a redemption to, and I'm afraid that if everyone becomes good in the end, it'll feel less earned. But then again, the characters of Monster High are literally teens, and I like the idea of telling the audience that being a kid is literally just one part of your life, and that there's always time to grow and be better no matter where you came from. Does any of that make sense? Kind of a tangent to wrap this up, I want to do a video at some point where I design my own fake lines for my redesigns, and I would love to do my own 3-pack of the werecats that are music themed because the G3 one is not it. I am shocked and appalled that Mattel made the twins re-debut in a super expensive 3-pack, and I just think the fits are pretty mid to lame anyways, so this is me saying, if you want a more grungy, cooler, and over-the-top design for the werecats, let me know down in the comments because I'd love to do that. In the meantime, I really hope we get more dolls of these two in the future because I just think Mattel owes it to them. Okay, I know I rambled on a lot about lore for the last 2 instead of my art process. I apologize about that, but I have a feeling that's going to be the case for most of this series. I just really like talking about these goobers, and I'm particularly excited to talk about my man, Claude Wolf. Not to diss Deuce or Jackson or any of the other male characters in Monster High, but objectively, I think Claude is the best one out of all of them. He's not even my favorite. I mean, again, Jackson is right there, but like, Claude is the best. I specifically remember getting the 2-pack that had both him and Draculaura, and I think his journal was one of the ones I reread the most. That last entry where he's talking about driving home from the library and finding Draculaura caught in the rain, offering to take her home, and then him coming home with a lipstick stain on his cheek he didn't know she left. And then in her diary, writing a poem about the same incident. That is so effing cute! Are you kidding me? I love that he's a gentleman. The Big Brother archetype is such a classic in high school settings, and I have to admit I really enjoy that. Not to mention just cool as hell. He's definitely still head of the football team in my universe, but not basketball because I want Deuce to have something. But I get why they made Claude head of a bunch of sports. They were trying to give him the alpha leader of the pack thing, but I want to make him more interested in stuff that's not just sports this time around. In the G3 show, they have this like kind of meta humor scene where Claude is geeking out over a quote-unquote human high doll, and it was at that moment I realized I love the idea of him being a collector. Maybe his older sisters had dolls when they were kids and forced him to play with them, so it just inadvertently became a thing he fell in love with. So now whenever Claudine and Howleen go thrifting together, he joins just so he can find cheap old G1 human high dolls. Not to be super cringe, but I also think it's a great way to get Claude and Draculaura to bond together. Draculaura probably has a huge doll collection with pieces that originate from way back before she was a vampire, and I could just imagine him being over and just being so gagged over it, like they just nerd out the whole time, and I love them. Don't get me wrong, I can get down heavy with Draculaura and Claudine, but man, Claude and Draculaura are like the one straight ship I'm obsessed with. I love when a man is down bad for his ghoul. And I will say, the fact that he is Draculaura's boyfriend heavily influenced his design this time around. My goal was to make him both look cozy and sporty. Spoiler alert, I had this piece fully finished for like 3 months just sitting in my Procreate files, and for a majority of that time, I really liked his design, but when I sat down to write this portion of the video, I realized I didn't have a lot to discuss about my process. I kept looking at him compared to the other boys I had redrawn, and especially next to Claudine and Track. I decided Claude looked especially unfashionable, so there will be a quick redesign in this section. One thing that irritated me so much as a kid, and still to this day, was their refusal to animate Claude in his original doll fit. It pissed me off bad. He was the best dressed out of any of those boy dolls, and for some reason he just, decided, no, I want Dracula's man not to serve? As a kid, I thought it was because drawing his hat was too hard, but no, every guy had to have the same goddamn varsity jacket. I feel like I'm going crazy. There's threads on Reddit of people wishing the doll looked like his animated counterpart, but not the other way around. And look, I know it's not that big of a deal, but let's sober up, people. Let's not get scared to have fashionable men in our fashion doll series. And I'm talking to myself as I say that too. If I want him to be the epitome of dream boyfriend, I have to step up my game. So my version of Claude ends up being a big cuddly jock. This to me meant lots of layers. High school football sweater and varsity jacket, lots of jewelry his sisters probably gave him, and a torn up flannel around his waist. I also made his main color teal, as I think it'd look great next to Dracula or the rest of his wolf pack. It may not be the most flashy of designs, but I still wanted to achieve that classic Monster High swag that they gave Deuce before I guess they decided no other guy doll needed to serve, whatever. I don't know. Look, I think he's cute as hell. Feel free to let me know down in the comments if I failed or slayed. I'm open to trying to make him look different, I guess. I don't know. Truthfully, the reason this video took so long to come out was because of this chick right here. I started sketching what I thought could possibly be a redesign, stopped midway, and didn't draw her again for maybe a month. I maybe could have brute forced it, but the series has become my child, and I gotta treat it with the love and respect it deserves. So I shelved the piece until I felt inspired again, and while I really love the design, the line art does end up looking a little funky, so I apologize in advance for that. Once I restarted though, I just hit the ground running. I had such a great time drawing her. I love getting to design more edgy outfits. I think my one regret for her is that the red and orange I color her with clashes with the pink and orange I gave Persephone and Malady, but on her own she looks cool. To reiterate one thing I said over on the twins section, I loved to hate them, especially Tuli, so I really wanted to make a redesign that I could say I loved. I want her to look badass, maybe a little intimidating, but also the kind of character I think a baby elementary school fan would try to emulate because she's just that awesome looking. She is the lead singer in the Hisfits and also plays the guitar. She is a mean kitty who loves making her peers at school miserable. She is self-assured and sarcastic, and also kind of bossy towards Persephone and Malady. However, those three girls are inseparable, as I've said before, so she would do anything for them at the end of the day. Tuli is in this constant revenge match against both Cleo and Claudine and the rest of the main ghouls. She plays a prank on them, they get her in trouble, she swears revenge, the cycle begins anew. I like the idea of her having a troubled childhood and growing a hardened personality in response to that. In my universe, she was taken in by Persephone and Malady's parents, and because of that, she super loves and respects that whole family. They're like the only adults she won't go out of her way to disrespect. Now, I have gone back and forth over and over again on whether I ship her and Claudine together, and to kind of delve into that a little further, I think I could ship it. I like the idea of them being in a sort of enemies to lovers arc, especially if Tuli gets a redemption in the future. I think there's potential for a lot of chemistry between the two of them. They're both confident and have a bit of a temper, while also being fiercely loyal and passionate about the things they love. I love an unstoppable lesbian power couple. I need more of that shit. However, the G1 themed comics that have them actually... Oh my god, sorry, I keep hitting my mic. I'm so sorry. I hold my mic while I talk so I can move around. I'm so stiff. I'm so sorry. Anyways, The G1 themed comics that have them actually together in canon piss me off just on the basis that there is not 1 ounce of chemistry between them. I don't like the whole Claudine is afraid of commitment plotline. In fact, I think it's a little out of character for her, and I would have instead preferred seeing the plotline of them getting together rather than seeing them in the middle of an already established rocky relationship that happened off screen. Especially since we just have to trust the author that Toralei is a changed ghoul just because... what? They said so? Bro, there's like 10 movies explaining why Toralei is so horrible. I don't believe you. Plus, you already have a fan favorite ship of Claudine and Draculaura. I can believe those two besties would end up falling for each other. Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, I highly doubt they'd want to make their golden child Draculaura gay in fear of retaliation from homophobes, but that's a conversation for another time. It's one thing to read fan interpretations of this relationship because I expect the authors to play with pre-existing relationships and have fanon plots. My disbelief is already suspended in those places. However, in canon, there are pre-established rules and lore that has to be more solid, otherwise your original story doesn't make sense. And I know, I'm probably being too nitpicky considering Monster High has never been good at sticking to one canon, and while I've come to expect that, it doesn't mean I have to like it. So TLDR is no. Toralei and Claudine will not be in a relationship. Okay, that was my hot take for the day. I hope my passion doesn't scare any of you guys away. I really like my version of Toralei. I almost went for a sort of e-girl approach to her design, but I'll be honest, I think I would have ended up hating her if I did that. Side note, it'd be so cool if Monster High could pull off a jellyfish haircut on one of their dolls one day. Maybe they should give it to Laguna instead of Toralei though. You know how much they love their puns. Finally, 3 videos later, I finally get to talk about my son, my baby boy, my Jackson. If I had to make a list of Holy Grail dolls I would want to someday own, first is Widona Spider, and the second is Jackson Jekyll. It's so funny because, like, looking back, while he was my childhood crush, now as a 22-year-old, I just want to be him. He's like the poster child for aches and otherwise gender non-conforming goobers like myself. His whole nerdy boyish aura, I want to exude that. He is, without a doubt, my favorite Monster High boy. If you watched the first video or have seen any of my previous redesigns, you know I've already done Holt Hyde's redesign. As I said in his section, I want to make Holt and Jackson look like they inhabit the same body, meaning the physical features are mostly the same except for hair and skin tone, and of course they have the same piercings. If you had a Holt and Jackson doll, you probably know that they have a yin-yang tattoo on the back of their neck, and I'm definitely keeping that in the redesign, even if you can't see it. So if Holt is based off of rave fashion, my Jackson is more so like scene/emo. I do admit I probably could have gone harder in that direction, but I think you'll find the final product to be really good. He's my favorite in this particular batch of characters. In terms of lore, Jackson and Holt have yet to receive a G3 counterpart, and I am doubtful they ever will. Since G3 Claudine is half human, half monster, and they make a whole kind of racism allegory out of that, it kind of renders Jackson redundant in the story, plus a lot of people, including me, have taken to interpreting Jackson and Holt as an allegory for DID, even if that wasn't the original intent. I will give the people in charge of G3 a lot more credit. They have been a lot more mindful of how they present diversity compared to the original canon, and for that I am grateful. But I don't think the DID interpretation has gone over their heads either, and if I'm being honest, I doubt they trust in themselves to represent it as faithfully as I think it deserves. At the end of the day, I think that is okay. We've had enough bad DID rep to last us a lifetime. I'm okay if Monster High sits this one out. Won't stop me from hoping that one day Jackson gets us flowers though. One can dream. Not to say G3 can't come up with something new for Holt and Jackson to do as well. In fact, I think this is a great opportunity to make their own great version of them. However, I don't think Mattel is eager to produce more male dolls, considering they usually don't sell very well. If they made the G3 male dolls cooler, I think it'd be a different story, but I digress. Long story short, I only have G1's canon story to go off of when making my own lore for Jackson. This does not bother me because there's already a lot I can use for my redesign. Jackson is my beautiful Hot Topic wannabe son. Yes, I made him have a nerdy little sweater, though I did change the bow tie in favor of a regular tie, mostly to reference like, you know, the MCR 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge black button-up red tie look. That's what I was going for. I went back and forth a lot on whether to keep his original color palette. I know it's not necessarily the edgiest palette I could have gone for, but the blues and yellows I think work in that favor of making him feel less monstrous. He literally is the human of the franchise, so yeah, that checks out. I did make sure to keep some edgy elements in his design too. That over-dyed, forcefully straightened hair I remember being a staple of emo culture when I was in middle school. If you ask to see Jackson's many bracelets, they will be dedicated to bands that he listens to. I said it before in the first video about Holt and Jackson's transformations. The only thing that I am keeping from the Lacey Harrison novels, because they are ass, is that instead of changing when Jackson and Holt hear music or whatever, it's when Jackson gets too hot, because Holt is a fire elemental. I want to make that a little more obvious. I'm allowed one thing. I'm allowed to steal one thing. I almost made him an artist for the Lacey Harrison novels. I like the Jackson from those novels. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I will stop talking about them now. Obviously, I'm keeping how nerdy he is. I was heavily bullied as a child, so I really appreciated having a character in Monster High who also struggled with it. He definitely tries to stick up for himself in moments where he's being bullied, but probably can't do it as well as Holt can. And being a normie probably doesn't help change Monster's views on him. I loved how sarcastic and angsty he acts in his journal. Love his journal. Where in the webisode/movies, Jackson was extremely puny. In his journal, he's way more chill. There's this down-to-earth personality that's just begging to shine, but can't because of everything that's happening in his life at the moment. He's shy to anyone who doesn't know him, but also kind and funny. Jackson dated Draculaura maybe a month during the summer before meeting Frankie, but decided early on that while they liked being friends, they're not romantically compatible. Though I do think Draculaura ships Frankie and Jackson. He's friends with Deuce and Slow-Mo, and while he's related to Heath, they don't really like interacting with each other outside of family gatherings. I like to imagine Ghoulie and Jackson are friendly rivals in the classroom, since Jackson is known to have a knack for mad science. Who knows, maybe after the Holt x Frankie x Jackson love triangle, he could have a Slow-Mo x Ghoulie x Jackson love triangle? Or is that too many love triangles? Okay, that's enough rambling. He is by far my favorite male redesign I've done for the series thus far. I can seriously imagine him fitting in with even my own, non-Monster High OCs. I'll definitely have to do fan art of this redesign one day. And there we have it, the next 5 characters in my Redesigning Monster High series. Good God, take a shot every time I say Monster High or redesign, but definitely don't do that because it's way too often. I always have a lot of fun making these videos, so it's really nice to see all the love you guys give every time I post one. Though I'm trying to give a good amount of variety of the types of things I draw in these long-form videos, it seems this series gets the most attention, which is good, because I have a lot of ideas for other Monster High related videos, so maybe now I won't procrastinate on them since I know you guys like them so much. If you got this far into the video, let me know by telling me what you want to see next. Another redesign part, maybe I can make my own Monster High OCs, or maybe some fan kit designs. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, it would mean the world to me. Maybe check out some of my other videos if you haven't. I'm Eddie, signing off.